William Seal.
Mr. Speaker, customs is New Zealand's front line to the world, and it plays a significant role in facilitating international trade and tourism. Labor acknowledges that our border management environment involves a number of agencies that facilitate and control the flow of people and goods that flow across our borders. We recognise that Customs makes a very significant contribution to border management and assists other agencies in meeting a range of objectives at the border. We agree that the challenge for Customs is to maintain security of the border from risks and threats without compromising trade and travel facilitation standards. Labor notes that enhanced information technology and the Joint Border Management Information System may assist the Department to process the transactions from increasing volumes of trade and travel. Labor believes that in order to effectively respond to increasing demands, customs interventions need to be focused on the people, goods or crafts that are likely to present risks to New Zealand's interests. We believe that those risks need to be identified as early as possible in the process. Labor supports the work of Customs and its officers on the New Zealand border and will therefore support this bill to Select Committee stage. However, while we support this bill to Select Committee, Labor does have concerns around the privacy issues and issues of human rights and freedoms, which I will pose by way of asking the following questions. With regard to the Joint Border Management Information Sharing, we would ask, what are the guiding principles of this system of information sharing? What specific information is collected, used, disseminated, or maintained in the system? What are the specific sources of information in the system? Will the public and stakeholders accept why the information is being collected, used, disseminated, or maintained? How will the information be checked for accuracy? Who will check it for accuracy? And how will the public have inaccurate or erroneous information corrected? And I give an example of a gentleman who lives in my electorate whose mother died not too long ago, and he dropped everything, bought an airline ticket one way with cash, and rushed to be with his family in Pakistan. And when the funeral rites were all done, he bought a ticket again with cash and returned to Mangere. Upon his arrival, he was detained at the airport and questioned for several hours. And this was not the first time that this has happened to this gentleman, and he is not the only person that this has happened to. And so there are questions around the validity of information that is corrected, and how does an individual then correct erroneous and inaccurate information? What are the specific legal authorities or arrangements or agreements that would define the collection of information between the border agencies involved? And given the amount and type of data collected, what will be the privacy risks and how will these risks be mitigated? What types of tools will be used to analyse data and what type of data may be produced? Will the system collect commercially sensitive data? And if so, how will commercially sensitive data be used? What information is retained in the system and how long for? What are the risks associated with the length of time data is retained and how will those risks be mitigated? With which border agencies is the information shared with other than the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry? And what information is shared and for what purpose? How will the information be transmitted or disclosed? And what are the privacy risks associated with each transmission or disclosure method? With which external organisations, and I say external to New Zealand border control agencies, is the information shared with? What information is shared and for what purpose, and what security measures will safeguard its transmissions? And do individual persons have the opportunity or right to decline to provide information? Are the individual which data is collected from given notice before the collection of information? Do individuals have the right to consent to particular uses of the information? And if so, how does the individual exercise that right? What procedures will allow individuals to gain access to their information? What procedures will allow individuals to correct inaccurate or erroneous information? How will individuals be notified of the procedures for correcting their information? If no formal redress is provided, What alternatives are available to the individual? What procedures will be in place to determine which users may access the system and where will they be documented? Will contractors have access to the system? How will we ensure contractors use the system lawfully and legally? What privacy training will be provided to users either generally or specifically relevant to the system, and how often? What auditing measures and technical safeguards will be in place to prevent misuse of data? What technology is being used for this system? Will the technology used in the Joint Border Management System be future-proofed for new technological developments and future developments? Is it the government's intention to extend the Joint Border Management information sharing from internal New Zealand border agencies to extending it to other nations within our surrounding region? Labor believes that we need to both ensure that Customs is able to take advantage of relevant technological developments to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of our operations, and have the appropriate technology and intelligence capability to monitor. It is Labour's view that there are enough significant privacy considerations to warrant the Privacy Commissioner to participate in a statutory review of the provisions of the bill in 5 years' time, and we agree with these provisions. But we then ask, is 5 years too long? I also want to say, Mr. Speaker, that sophisticated data sharing software is a powerful tool and it doesn't come cheap. We understand that the $75.9 million allocated in budget 2010-2011 will only pay for the first part of a two-stage project. Industry sources estimate that the total cost could top $200 million. The Minister has conceded that the government expects to cover at least some of the development costs, and this has commenced with an expanded import transaction fee. From 1st of July this year, New Zealand's Customs Service began applying an import transaction fee of $24.75, which is GST inclusive, to a range of personal imports that attract GST and import duty. Generally, the import transaction fee will apply to goods valued over $400, but at times packages valued at less than $400 will attract the fee. The fee will apply to all import items such as jewellery, clothing and electrical appliances. Customs says these imports transaction fees are applied to cover the time and costs associated with processing imports and are used to fund border risk management activities. Consumers who purchase goods from overseas over the internet will be more likely to be caught by the fee. Then there is the powerful data matching tool itself, designed to hone in on suspicious passengers and freight at ports and airports. The system will be able to check for relationships between people that have previously been too obscure to raise concerns. It will track all import and export transactions, personal movements across the border, criminal records and family and romantic relationships. This is the reason why we've raised the fact that there are significant privacy considerations that ought to be considered. And I would be keen to hear from the Privacy Commissioner of the risk associated with this system and to how do we mitigate any and all risk identified. I would also be keen to hear from the general public who have had good and bad experiences at our borders about any concerns they may have. In addition, I think it would be important to hear from the agencies that may be directly affected by this bill, including those organisations whose interests may be affected by this legislation. And so, Mr. Speaker, whilst we do support this bill to the Select Committee stage, I think, and whilst there are some amendments which are minor, or they're so-called minor amendments, we do ask those particular questions because the real concern that I have, and my colleagues will share, is the issues around privacy. And those issues is the reason why I pose those questions. They're significant questions which hopefully the Select Committee process will be able to tease out and receive evidence from the general public out there.